I was waiting because I thought we were waiting for people to arrive. Are we good?
No, we're good to start.
Oh, okay, excuse me. Then give me just 1 second. I'll pull up the agenda. All right. Let's call the meeting to order then for Tuesday, June the 23rd, 2020. This is a committee of the whole meeting. And can we have a roll call, please? Ms. Rogel.
Mr. Bergnick.
Present.
Mrs. Brancato.
I'm here.
Mrs. Crossan.
Here.
Mr. Dixon.
Here.
Mrs. Eilenberg.
Here.
Mr. Goddixon.
Present.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Panofsky. Mr. Panofsky.
I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Martin.
Present.
9 members present.
Excellent. Can we have the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Announcements. We did have an executive session ahead of this to discuss some forthcoming safety matters. Mr. Miller, did you want to give an update on our superintendent search?
I could do that. We did promise to keep the parents, community, and stakeholders up to date. I would say that we are progressing very smoothly. We started out, the people involved are confidential, but we started out with 24 candidates. We pared that down to 14 from the resumes, and we had a first round of meet and greet with those 14, from which we are now down to 7. And we will be talking with them the remainder of this week and early next week, and we'll continue on. I would like to point out that this might be an area where the board has gelled. Everybody's been working together, and I think because of that, we've been able to make steady progress. I think one thing that we can all be comfortable in is that everybody involved in the process is concerned about the district, its future, and especially our students.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for the update. Are there any questions about the update from other board members? In which case, not hearing anything.
Mr. Dixon, I forgot one other element. We are also working to make sure that the round of finalists will be attended and have input from community members and stakeholders.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Miller. Yes, that's important to this board as a whole, and everybody is in agreement with that. So moving along to new business.
Mr. Dixon, we do have a hand up.
Oh, we do. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm looking at the board docs agenda instead of our Zoom agenda. Please, Mr. Panofsky.
I just wanted to give an update. I had mentioned at our last meeting about the problems facing the Warminster VFW. I'm happy to say that last week they were presented with a check of totaling somewhere around $6,500, which will keep them going through the entire summer. So a huge thank you to the community along all areas of this community who stepped up and helped out a community institution that's been helping us for years.
Thank you, Mr. Panofsky. All right. So we have new business then, Mrs. Cross.
Did anybody want to pull anything?
I would like to pull 2.1, at least parts of it.
and I would like to table them.
Okay, all right, I'll come back to that then. All right, new business, be it resolved that the Centennial School District Board of School Directors 2.2 approves the contract between Seidenberger and Associates LLC and the Centennial School District as per the attached. 2.3 approves the addendum to the contract with Tom Greenwood to revise the title from Business Administrator to Chief Financial Officer as per the attached. 2.4 approves the addendum to the contract with Tom Greenwood to revise item 1 salary to remain at his current salary for the 2020-2021 school year as per the attached. 2.5 approves the addendum to the contract with Virginia Fredrickson, Director of Human Resources, item 1C, employment and compensation, salary adjustments, to remain at her current salary for the 2020-2021 school year as per the attached. 2.6 authorizes the expenditures of Middle Bucks Institute of Technology General Program for the period July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2021, as set forth by the submitted budget proposal. 2.7 authorizes the business administrator to close the 2019-2020 Centennial School District book as of June 30th, 2020, incorporating all accruals therein to pay the 2019-2020 bills that are due by June 30th, 2020 as accrued, to transfer the budget amounts necessary for processing these expenditures, subject to review and ratification by the Board of School Directors on or about September 8th, 2020, to pay the 2020-2021 bills that are due before the September 8th, 2020 regular meeting of the Board of School Directors, subject to review and ratification by the board on or about September 8th, 2020, and directs the administration to proceed with preparing for necessary audit of the fiscal year 2019-2020. Further directs the business administrator and or designee to record or adjust commitments of fund balance in any or all of the following categories: future capital projects, other post-employment benefits, and retirement contributions. Finally, authorizes the business administrator and or designee to transfer an amount not to exceed the projected 2019-2020 fiscal year surplus, if there is one at internal closing, to either the Capital Reserve Fund 32, Debt Service Fund 40, or a combination thereof, consistent with the district's multi-year financial strategy. 2.8 adopts the anti-racism resolution as attached. And I wasn't sure if anybody would like me to read that resolution. Okay.
I think
I'm
that's a
gonna
nice
read it.
idea. I think that's a nice idea.
Yeah. Resolution supporting the development of an anti-racist school climate by Board of Directors of the Centennial School District. Whereas we are deeply saddened and outraged by the recent killing of George Floyd and violence against Black men and women, the subsequent protests have shined a spotlight on the harmful effects of racism and equality. Furthermore, the public response has highlighted the racial trauma that our Black students, families, staff, and communities have not only endured for centuries, but continue to face today. Whereas we must recognize that racism and hate have no place in our schools and society. However, we must understand that racism is systemic and is consciously rooted into our institutions, policies, and practices. Consequently, we acknowledge that we must look at our own school policies and practices through an anti-racist and equity lens to address traces of racism and inequity that still exist within our own school community. Whereas we must center the voice of staff, students, families, and communities who have historically endured discrimination and marginalization. Their lived experiences and stories require attention, require respect, require empathy, and most importantly, require action. Therefore, it is essential that we establish an expectation that a diversity of students, families, and community members, specifically those that have been ignored, discriminated against, and marginalized, are heard and include it on substance school and district issues. Whereas we must better educate ourselves and seek to educate the community on the historical and current impact of racism and discrimination on our students, families, and community, as well as understand our role in perpetrating such inequity. Through continuous professional development and opportunities for honest dialogue and listening sessions, we hope to build partnerships in the community focused on overcoming racism and other barriers. By doing so, we can create opportunities to ensure that each child has the tools and support needed to thrive. Whereas we must advocate to advance civil rights and cultivate an anti-racist school climate necessary to meet all students in our care. Our students, no matter their race, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, language ability, disability, and other identities, deserve to feel safe, to feel seen, and to feel affirmed. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Centennial School Board unequivocally stand firm in our collective responsibility to foster an equitable and inclusive environment for every student, staff, member, parent, and community member. We commit to use our role as school board directors to recognize, respond, and speak out against injustice and racial inequality in our school community. In support of this goal, the Centennial School Board commits to the following action steps. The Centennial School District, the district, has developed a district-wide equity team with a representative from each building, administration, and the Board of School Directors. Penn Equity and Excellence Consortia conducted an equity audit of the district, which was adopted by the Board of Directors on May 4th, 2019. The district created an equity liaison position as a representative from each building in the district, identified student leaders at the secondary levels for a student voice, member of the Delaware Valley Consortium for Excellence in Equity. A book club was created using a Centennial Education Foundation grant centered around race and ethnicity. Professional development from Penn and Peace Center, speaking with teachers, encouraging conversation about race and ethnicity. The district has representatives on the PSBA task force. The equity team is working on developing an equity statement for the district. The equity team is looking at data through the equity lens. The equity team is working with parents to establish a parent equity committee. A statement was emailed to the faculty and staff from the superintendent, Dr. David Ball, regarding recent tragic events and requested a moment of silence. Teachers who were participating in a professional development paused for the moment of silence. The board president, Andrew Dixon, has requested a moment of silence before each board meeting to acknowledge the recent tragic events.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion of any of these items?
I do really have a question in regards to this proclamation, because Centennial School District has a lot of Latinos in the community. And for that reason, I would like to take the word black out and just leave everything else as it is, but take the word black out and proceed from there.
Black out of where?
In the first paragraph. Instead of saying our Black students, say
Right.
our students, families, and communities.
Well, I think maybe a way to handle this, Fleming, I take your point. And a lot of times you'll hear the phrase now Black and brown men and women, which is meant to be more inclusive of people of color effectively.
Well,
So rather than strike the word black, I would be perfectly happy to add and brown at the front end of it.
I would not use the word brown. I would use the word Latinos or Hispanics.
Well, the problem with that is then, I mean, in all honesty, because then you're specifying, there might be people who are people of color, but who do not identify as either Black or as Hispanic. And that's why people use black and brown.
Yeah, but I believe that having helped with the development of this resolution, it speaks specifically to George Floyd and the event. It has nothing to do with our own district's policy respecting all people. This is a particular event that the resolution speaks to.
Yes, that's also true. I mean, wow, we could go around about this a long time because, oof, I mean, there's a lot of heavy things involved here. Mr. Miller, you were involved, I believe, to some degree with the development of this resolution at PSBA. Is that correct?
We have a very large number of people in our district that are involved in this. We have a very prominent equity position within the state.
Yes.
As you know, we sent a team of 6 people this year and again last year to Washington, D.C.
Right.
So, you know, this is something we do. This is not a limitation. This is a particular event that we're looking at and the response
Right.
that came from it. So
I don't want to do
This
damage
makes a
to.
big difference too, as long as we're looking at this as specific to the George Floyd, you know, then I understand the word black being in there.
yeah, and you know, there's nothing to prevent us from reminding our community of the other efforts we take. We do have a diversity pledge in the district. Maybe we want to make that more prominently visible within the district, maybe a better spot on our website. Those are all things that we can do to show our support for all people, but the resolution speaks to a specific event.
Right. And I think that this resolution, I guess I'll say I agree. I think that leaving it the way it is, it was developed with a very specific incident in mind. So I'm happy to leave it as it stands.
With that in mind, I can accept that.
All right. Was there any other discussion of any other items, either the resolution or any of the other items involved from 6.2 through 2.2 through 2.8? Hearing none or seeing none, may we have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Robold?
Mrs. Crossan,
Yes.
Mrs. Eilenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Goddixson,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Panofsky,
Yes.
Mr. Birdnick,
Yes.
Mrs. Brancato,
Yes.
Mr. Dixon.
Yes.
Motion carries 900.
Thank you, everyone. And so, Mrs. Crossan, 6.1.
2.1, be it resolved that the Centennial School District Board of School Directors approves the personal agenda, including retirements, resignations, non-renewal of contracts, creation of positions, leave of absence, and change of status as per the attached.
Need a second. Somebody.
This is John Panofsky. I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Panofsky. Mrs. Brancato, you pulled this.
Right. So I have some questions. Regarding the Human Resource Department section of this.
Point of order.
Yes.
We cannot discuss personnel items in an open board meeting. It has to be done in executive session.
Okay. So do we table this?
You can make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to table this to the next executive session. Only the parts regarding human resources.
I will
just-
second that.
Okay, we have a second for the motion. All those in favor of tabling, well, actually, before we take a vote, could we have a ruling? Can we table half an item? Or if we table, you know what I mean?
She was specific, I believe, and tabling only the human resource actions. So we can table only those. Let's bifurcate the motion. I'm going to ask Mr. Burdick for his usual concurrence here, but I believe the correct step would be to bifurcate the motion, taking out the human resources and approve everything else.
Mr. Miller, I agree with you exactly. You beat me to the punch.
All right, so do we need a motion to bifurcate?
Mr. Dixon,
Yes.
this is Mary Ann. Could I just request, if it's not too much difficulty, that we really fine tune specifically which parts in which sections?
Okay, so
pull it
what I think
out.
we're, if I'm following this correctly, Mrs. Brancato probably wishes to take out the elements of 2.1 to do with human resources. So if we were to split this motion to be approving, oh goodness, the assistant to the superintendent for learning and innovation job description, the assistant to the superintendent for pupil services job description, the personnel agenda, except for,
I don't think we're taking that out, Matt. Can we ask Mrs. Brancato to clarify? It sounded to me like she was only talking specifically about the changes in the human resources office.
Yes, that only the parts that pertain to the human resource office.
No, I understand what you're asking for. What I'm trying to do is therefore separate what
Can
is
you
and
not-
isn't to do with that.
Can we not just vote on that part of the motion and then approve the rest separately?
That's what I'm asking. I don't know that we can we, without separating it first?
The separation already took place with the motion.
Right.
Well,
The
we had a
purpose
motion to
of
table, but hasn't been voted on.
So we need to vote on that first, Mrs. Robold?
Well, we can continue to discuss, since there's a motion on the floor to table, you could continue to discuss it if you feel the need.
All
I'm
right,
just not comfortable.
let's just organize our thoughts here for a second. Like what I'm hearing is that there is a consensus, perhaps, to split out the human resources piece of this 2.1 from the rest of it. Is that so far correct?
Correct.
All right. So in
Only
order
the
to
parts, only the parts that pertain to the human resource department.
right. So if we do that, then it seems to me, looking at the documents that are included, what we would be then asking to split out are the two job descriptions for the assistants to the superintendent. And we would, as a separate, we're going to make that as well. Let me rephrase that. What we want to split out is the human resources manager job description and any element of the personnel agenda touching on that. Would that be correct?
And only that.
And only
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Okay. So do we need a motion to sever here, don't we? Those
No, I
items.
think we're okay because we made a motion to table the human resources sections. And I'll note that we're splitting out the human resources manager and any elements touching or relating to that specific item. And I think that's clear enough. So what
So
we
wait,
Correct.
so now we have a motion on the table as to whether or not we wish to table those
Correct.
items.
So that's what we need to vote on, is if we are going to table that specific section that we just discussed.
So I already made the motion to table it. So we need
Yes.
somebody to second it.
It's been seconded
Okay.
by
So
Mr.
now we
Maddox.
now we just need to vote on it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Are we calling the vote at this time on that item?
That's unless there's further discussion.
Yes, Mrs. Robold, let's move
Okay.
forward.
Okay, Mrs. Eilenberg,
No.
Mr. Goddixson,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Panofsky,
No.
Mr. Burdick,
Yes.
Mrs. Brancato,
Yes.
Mrs. Crossan,
Yes.
Mr. Dixon.
No.
Okay, 6-3. Motion to table passes 6-3.
Tabled it is, so we can now vote on the rest of the motion.
Correct.
Is there any discussion concerning the rest of the motion? In that case, can we have a roll call vote on that, Ms. Roble?
Okay, Mr. Goddixon,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Panofsky,
Yes.
Mr. Burtnick,
Yeah.
Mrs. Brancato,
Yes.
Mrs. Crossan,
Yes.
Mrs. Eilenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Dixon,
Yes.
9-0-0 for the rest of 2.1.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So with that, we are now going to presentations. Mr. Panofsky.
Okay, well, we have a robust agenda, so we're going to start off with Dr. Best and the PIAA safety plan.
Hey, good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I am on tonight with our athletic director, John Creighton, the co-author of that plan. We are looking to have the board approve what we've put in place this evening so that we can move forward with off-season workouts in preparation for the potential of a fall athletic season. We want to make sure our athletes would be ready should that occur. I will pass over to Mr. Creighton at this point, and obviously I'll be here available for questions as well as the end. Mr. Creighton, I'm handing off to you.
All right. Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. So thank you for your time this evening. Well, we've been meeting daily at the building level, discussing different ways to basically figure out how to navigate through this situation that we've been in. And also as a league, the 24 teams in the Suburban One League, we've been meeting weekly. Our trainer, Glenn Watchhorn, once we left for the school year in March, was reassigned by NovaCare to an Amazon distribution center where he was screening workers daily. So I'm very excited that his knowledge and his experience in this was not just sitting at home without a job. He was on the front lines for every day over the last 3 months. You will notice that 2 weeks ago, Bucks County Department of Health loosened their restrictions as it relates to some of the guidelines that we're going to be following, but we will be staying with a stricter guideline as we go through July in the hopes that we can gradually move into the fall season as it starts in August. At this point, 23 of 24 schools in our league will be presenting or have already had their plans approved, and one is hoping for a special board meeting in July. With that, I will start with our gradual return to play for workouts. This will be strictly limited to our fall sports. The first 2 weeks will only be outdoor. We will have gaps and restrictions applied through phase 1. We will enter into phase 2 on July 20th, where we will allow some indoor workouts with, of course, restrictions there. And that phase 2 will move through with the start of our heat acclimatization week for football, hopefully on August 10th, and all of our other fall sports returning on August 17th. Obviously, all of our partners with the facilities, our trainer and our partner at NovaCare, our parents, our coaches, and our student athletes will all have to be staying and completed in the loop before we return to play, hopefully on July 1st. Again, something that we do need to ensure is that off-season workouts are voluntary, so we're not requiring any of our student athletes to come back if this plan is approved. We will have enough gaps in our sessions and spacing in our sessions for our fall sports where they will not be crossing over, commingling, or interacting with each other. We also will be asking the parents not to leave their car at drop-off and pickup because we're not looking for any kind of spectators or fans. We strictly just want our coaching staffs and our athletes to get back to some sort of normalcy during this time. Next page, please. For our coaches, during our meetings with the league, we have come up with a free COVID-19 training through Safe Sports. It was used for all officials and coaches to enter back into participating throughout Australia and New Zealand. And Australia and New Zealand are far ahead of us in this pandemic. So that was something that one of our neighboring schools came up with, and I think was a good idea for our coaches to complete a professional development before they even start. In addition, they will have to submit essentially their practice plans or lesson plans on how they're going to accommodate the social distancing, hand washing, our hydration sources. The students it'll be on them to provide their hydration sources, but we will have backup cases of water with our athletic trainer, but they will not be able to use their standard jugs of water or water fountains. Again, being that we have been out of schools for multiple months, it's possible that some of our students have not been doing anything as it relates to physical activity. So again, with these lesson plans or daily plans, there needs to be some sort of gradual return to play to ensure that we are not incurring any additional injuries. In addition, the coaches will have daily checks and logs that both myself and the athletic trainer will be looking over each day. I plan to meet with all the coaches prior to the start and keep them in the loop. And I'll reference the communication and the data later on. As it comes to athletic considerations for our athletes, we more or less are not going to get another page in the PIAA medical form this year. So we would like to be proactive in the thought that we would want to ensure that our families and our student athletes all understand the risks involved and give, again, them, just like the coaches, a little bit more of an education piece as it relates to COVID-19. So that we would hope that they would, if they are going to come to voluntary workouts, that they would sign and return a participation waiver. Anything that has to do with before, during, or after is a communication to the coach. It also will be throughout our website, our social media platforms, and also if there is some sort of positive testing, then that communication will be coming directly through the trainer, myself, the coach, and then directly to Dr. Best. And then we will pass on that information to the Bucks County Department of Health. We are hoping with some contact tracing and information through Johns Hopkins University that if we keep our groups to a maximum of 25 with pods of 10 and allow that when they are doing their voluntary workouts, they stay within those maximum pods of 10, that we can contain any type of possible positive COVID-19 that happens within our teams, that it would be able to contact trace back to a certain pod or a group. So our classification for phase 1 would be the first 2 weeks, July 1st to the 17th. Again, all the coaches and the athletes would have to have the educational session on the symptoms and the risk mitigation and strategies before the first workout. And again, that's a collection that myself, the trainer, and the coaches will have to do. Again, if they want to work out. I mean, this is, again, 100% voluntary. July is a voluntary month where we typically have our summer camps and we have some teams working out. We're not having summer camps. So if we have this plan in place and it is approved, we will be starting. Again, it's a gradual return to play. Here is the outline in regards to phase 1. If we're using 2 locations to split up our 3 sessions during the day, one will be across the street. There will be porta potties there, and one will be at the stadium. And we are specific with 1 per restroom at a time. The schedule will be staggered, and of course, no spectators or parents at the workouts. Each team will have their own disinfectant spray. We'll be using Ken Clean Plus from our wrestling room. Each team and individual coaches will have spray bottles so that there are any kind of equipment that is shared from workout to workout, that not only will it be disinfected before they start, it'll be disinfected after, and then the next group coming in will have to disinfect before they start so that we can ensure that it was hit twice before the next person touches it. Phase 2, As it continues on, we will be allowed indoor workouts. Again, that's a maximum of 25 in the gym, whether that's our girls volleyball team or if there's a bad weather day or some of our other teams would like to get into the gym. We'll be working out with facilities and ensuring that the facility is adequate for re-entry. We're also going to keep the weight room at a maximum of 10 people just for social distancing, being that it is a tighter space than the gym or some of our fields. Everything pretty much stays the same. In phase 2, our coaches still are going to be asked to wear face coverings. Our students and team sessions will be asked to be virtual as much as possible. And when they are in their downtime or if they're sitting on a bench, we would ask that the students, as long as they don't have any kind of medical conditions, would be wearing cloth masks as well. The communication and the collection of data. We would cover all of our social media platforms, our website, and an e-blast initially to ensure that that communication gets out to all of our potential student athletes and our families. The pre-participation waiver would be for the students. The coaches' education and also meeting with me would be prior to any of the voluntary workouts, where they would understand that they would have to submit their safety plans to me prior to any start. Daily updates and changes. One way that we've done a good job in the past of any kind of cancellations or changes to a daily schedule is the one-way coaches apps, where they're able to communicate it out to their team. Our 2 platforms that we use are TeamSnap and Remind. Our athletic trainer will be doing daily screening. We will not be allowing teams to go off campus at this time, whether that's cross country or golf. They're going to be asked not to leave the campus at this time because we would rather ensure the safety of all of ours in our little bubble at William Tennant High School. And we're hoping by August, if there are any weekly changes or updates from the Department of Health, or we continually gradually move through, we will be way ahead of the game with our stricter guidelines. If there is a positive test, it will come from Dr. Best, and then we will also send all of our information to the Bucks County Department of Health. A few questions that a lot of our leagues and our ADs we've been discussing is what happens if a student has a fever? Well, they stay home. If they feel ill, they stay home. If they feel ill during one of our workouts or after one of our workouts, they would be isolated on campus and asked to contact a physician. We will also, again, be trying to ensure that the safety of all of our students, if somebody becomes COVID positive, that we would be shutting down that group and trying to ensure the contact tracing and it doesn't get further than their little pod. We would hope, obviously, the return to play would be very simply just like any other injury that we would have if we were in full session. They would need medical clearance to come back. And it is broken down in more detail, all of this in our template that PD provided last week. Any additional questions?
Okay, I see.
I had my hand raised.
Yeah, I saw your hand, Mr. Miller. Go ahead.
Mr. Creighton, thank you. This is comprehensive. I have 2 areas that I wanted to question here. Number 1, merely language. Somehow we should clean up groups of 25 and pods of 10 because the math doesn't work out quite equally there. Maybe it should be not to exceed 25 and not to exceed 10.
Okay.
Obvious, if 25 showed up, probably be 8, 9, something like that. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so if we could clear that up. The more important part of this is the Department of Education is requiring all of these templates, but they're not going to approve or return them. What they require is that the board approves them. And because we're feeling our way here, I think we have to be able to monitor this as we go along. So there should be something in this plan before it's filed that says, not without violating HIPAA, that you'll keep the board of school directors informed through the superintendent or his designee, which I assume would be Mr. Wardenby.
So if I could jump in on that, Mr. Miller, that's a great question that you ask. Right now, we have a system in place that's been recommended where we have our nursing staff keeping a record of positive COVID cases, and we can certainly, inform the board minus a HIPAA violation of when we have positive cases.
Well, we're not going to micromanage this. We just, there's an onus put on the board by the Department of Education to monitor this. So what we need to know, maybe it can be done with a weekly report from the superintendent. Again, without violating HIPAA, how this is progressing, and if any changes are needed along the way. If you change the plan, it has to come back to the board for board approval. There should be some provision in there where, if it's between meetings, the superintendent, as he does with other things, has the right to approve and then have the board approve retroactively. But we just want to stay in front of this so that PDE doesn't come back with some other burden to place on the district.
Now, I couldn't agree with you more on that, and I can tell you that as you read through this, as I'm sure you have, you'll see that the plan that Mr. Creighton is proposing is far more stringent than what the actual guidelines are currently, because we're concerned about the same things, and we want to be able to be nimble with this plan in the event that things shift quickly on us. And we do appreciate the board allowing the leeway for retroactive approval, because that may be necessary at certain points.
All right, so that should just be cleaned up in here somewhere within the plan that we're going to submit to PDE.
Yep. No, I can add those two items in the template and resend. That's not a problem.
Okay, Mr. Miller, is there anything else you had?
I'm trying to lower my hand here.
Okay, Ms. Brancato, I saw your hand next.
Yep. I just wanted to ask us two simple questions. There's a part in there that says no coolers. Does that mean no team coolers or individual coolers, Mr. Creighton?
Yes, that's no team coolers. All individual students will be asked to bring their own water, and then we'll have backups with the trainer, whether it's they didn't bring enough or a student may have forgot that day.
So can we just make sure the kids know that they can bring their own personal cooler? Because you and I know they're out there on, practicing for football, man, that gets hot real fast.
Sure, absolutely.
They can bring their own. And the other question, because I couldn't hear, because I had a dog barking in the background, all the athletes are going to be required to wear a mask?
No, not when they're participating, but if there's downtime, we're asking that they try to do, in the first phase, they'll be doing all of their team meetings virtually. In the second phase, we're asking them to do as many as possible. But if there is some sort of instructional downtime during their practice, or if we get to small-sided scrimmages, or when we get to inter-squad scrimmages, like if they are sitting on the bench, they would still be wearing it. Yes.
But not while they're actively playing?
No.
Huh. I was picturing masks flying everywhere. Okay.
But again, I mean, it would be up to the parents. I mean, because again, since we are strictly just voluntary right now,
sure.
I can see a lot of parents not ready to send them back yet, but that's okay.
Sure. So that'll be a parental decision.
Absolutely.
Okay. I was just picturing masks flying everywhere on a football field, and I was just sitting here laughing. So only because I have football players, I can't even imagine. But thank you very much. I appreciate all the information.
No problem.
Mr. Goddixson.
So my question really pertains to, the student that becomes sick, during the practice. That student goes home and goes to the physician. What is going to be the conditions for that student to return back to practice?
Yes. So if you, and Nate, can you hear me? Mr. Ross. There's a section in our template. If you go to page, I'm sorry, just give me a second.
It was right on that page.
and the requirements of returning isolated or quarantined staff, students, or visitors to the school. It's on the template if you keep scrolling down.
Okay. If it's already covered, then I'm okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
so you want me, I can just read it out for you real quick. If you like.
I wouldn't mind, you know.
Okay,
because it's
sure.
good for the community to hear as well.
Sure. So during both our first phase and our second phase, if someone is presumptive symptomatic, the persons can return to the building if they have met the following criteria. That would be 3 days with no fever and symptoms improved, and it has been 10 days since symptoms were discovered. If they've been tested positive and are asymptomatic, you can return to the building if you've met the following criteria. 10 days have passed since initial test. If you are symptomatic, 14 days with a doctor's note to return. And if you have had close contact with someone with COVID-19, you're required to stay home for 14 days after exposure based on the time it takes to develop illness.
Thank you.
Dr. Baugh.
Thank you. It's just,
Oh boy.
all right, I'm almost there. Thank you. I just want to make sure that we're going to approve this contingent upon the 2 changes as discussed. For the teams to move forward, it does need board approval, and sooner rather than later.
Yes, we absolutely need to approve it.
That was the only
Right.
point I wanted to make.
We need to approve it
It
tonight.
does require
And-
board approval,
and
and
as you
there were
said,
2 changes
Contingent on the
discussed.
changes. So we'll ask your office to review it before it goes to PDE.
Okay, is that actually on our approval agenda for tonight? Yes, it is. Yeah, okay, it's on our approval agenda. I don't see any reason to approve it or not approve it as long as we have those changes contingent upon. Anyone else have questions on this particular presentation? Hearing none, Dr. Best, you're still up with the ATSI plan.
Yes, thank you. So we have TSI designation in a few of our schools, and I'm the first one off this evening. For the newer board members, William Tennant High School received a designation for the 18-19 school year with regard to growth and achievement in mathematics. We implemented a plan this current school year that was meeting each of our benchmarks for success until we shut down. And with the cancellation of standardized testing for the state of Pennsylvania, we weren't able to demonstrate progress on that plan. During the midst of this school year, we received an additional designation regarding achievement and growth in the area of ELA at William Tennant High School. So what I'm presenting this evening is an add-on to that plan that will need to be filed with the state as well. And Mr. Ross, if you could go to slide 2. For everyone who's not familiar, under Pennsylvania's federal ESSA plan, TSI designations are part of an early warning system for at-risk students, basically to make sure that schools are providing intensive support and improvement strategies to make sure that everyone is going to be successful. So because there was enough of a discrepancy between our general student population and a few of our subgroups, we were designated for this area as well, which is why we're presenting this plan this evening. Similar to last year's designation in mathematics that came at a time where we presented a new mathematics plan for the district, implemented CPM along with professional development and benchmark testing with MAP, measures of academic progress. This designation comes at a time where we were already in the process of realigning our ELA classes to PA core standards, implementing MAP testing and relevant professional development to these issues that we identified prior to PDE identifying them. Mr. Ross, if you could just move to our next slide. What you will see in the next area is that we're looking at making sure we have a cohesive ELA framework, creating more student-centered ELA learning environments, and making sure we provide for groups of students with specific individual learning needs. And there are some goals on the next slide that comes out of this. We would like to ensure that we continue our efforts to make sure that all of our ELA courses are fully aligned to PA core standards by the conclusion of the school year, which we're working on right now. Mr. Ross, if you could just jump to the next slide. That all of our teachers in these courses are having the opportunity to participate in job embedded professional learning opportunities, which one of the outcomes of the COVID-19 shutdown have been led by Mr. Gabriel in the Office of OLI, as well as Mr. Rutz and Mrs. Coles and our teacher coaches, tremendous professional development that we've been able to offer to everyone, which has been a great help. What we're looking to do is to make sure that we're offering best instructional practices in grades 9 and 10, and really all of our grades, so that our students have a better opportunity to score proficiently on the literature keystone in 10th grade, which under Act 158 is one of the graduation requirements for the class of 2022 and beyond. So this evening's presentation, is not meant to be lengthy, but to update our Board of School Directors on an issue we all know we have with keystone testing at the high school and what we're doing to address it as a building. From there, I'd just like to go to our final slide regarding our action plan that we've been implementing and will continue to implement to make sure we capitalize on this opportunity for instructional improvement and student achievement. We are continuing with our efforts with the Penn Literacy Network for more student-centered strategies. We have made an investment as a district in the Collins Writing Program, which we've seen gains from, and we will continue to benchmark using NWEA MAP, which is a nationally normed tool to monitor student progress throughout the year. And we will hopefully see an increase in both growth and achievement for our students, both in PSSAs and in the literature keystone that they take in 10th grade, provided that standardized testing continues in the state of Pennsylvania moving forward. So that is the conclusion of this presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions any of our directors have regarding this.
Do we have any questions? Okay, well, I don't see any. Dr. Best, thank you so much for all your hard work. We are going to move on to Mr. Hayes and the Klinger Middle School TSI plan.
Thank you all.
All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me here as well this evening. I won't repeat the framework that Dr. Best shared because it's very similar for Klinger Middle School, as well as for you're going to hear in a moment from McDonald Elementary with Mr. Ortiz. But we have been identified also for targeted school improvement. And specifically, we're looking at the areas of our economically disadvantaged students and our English language learners, both for not showing enough growth and achievement on PSSA, math, and ELA, as well as English language proficiency. We have noticed at Klinger that we've had incredible growth, and just last year we had and celebrated a 22% increase in our school score overall. But we do recognize by the state looking at us for this TSI that we have some work that we need to do with these specific groups. So the plan that we have put together really focuses on two main goals for these two groups. One is to look at targeted intervention in English language arts and mathematics during and after the school day. So looking at different things where we're studying individual student data and then targeting the specific skills for where we see the need for each of our kids. and really looking at how we can do things within the school day and looking at trying to be creative and look outside of the school day as well and trying to help our families as much as we can. And the second we have is an equity goal. I want to applaud the board for the statement that you added in this evening regarding racism, because this is really something that I think we need to look at strongly. And in terms of equity with the groups that we have, there absolutely are biases and racism and expectations that we need to look at. So the goal that we have with this is to take a significant part of the year really studying this from a school standpoint and finding out where our problems are, and then looking to address them specifically through professional development and some real deep and hard work at what's going on and what things we can do to really make a change in the world, starting right here at Klinger Middle School. So that's the bones of our plan, and I thank you for your attention, and I'm ready to answer any questions if anyone has one as well.
And do we have any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your hard work, Mr. Hayes. Next up is Mr. Ortiz for McDonald's TSI plan.
All right, good evening, everyone. This is Ernesto Ortiz, and proud principal of McDonald Elementary School. And yes, believe it or not, McDonald was identified as a targeted school improvement school in terms of the subgroups for students who are designated as Hispanic and English language learners, specifically in English and language arts. Now, the plan that I submitted for the board to look at and approve mirrors what we've been doing for the better part of this entire school year in terms of embracing the science of reading and impacting the literacy landscape, not only at McDonald, but in our entire district. And with a focus on how reading develops in the primary grades, specifically K-1-2, if we're looking to truly impact systemic change in grades K to 5, you have to start looking at the foundation of grades K-1-2. And then along the continuum of reading development, how do we go about addressing the deficiencies when we see a student struggling? And then how does that impact for students who are learning a second language when English is not their first language? And just because a student might not be designated as an English language learner, just because they have some level of English proficiency does not mean that they're still not learning the language of English in a capacity that is not as mirroring their classmates' progression. So with all that being said, I am really proud of the work that we're doing at McDonald and what in terms of reading development. And I believe that what we have in place in terms of Tier 1 instruction, how we're going to go about remediating any deficiencies in Tier 2 and Tier 3 with the systems that we have in place at our school and within our district will go hand in hand in what the designation that we received for a targeted school improvement. So I have great confidence that at this time, maybe not next year due to a variety of barriers, but within the next couple of years, I will not have a need to be presenting to you a targeted school improvement plan. Any questions?
We do.
Mr. Hodgson.
Yeah, I do have a question in it. It's very interesting that you happen to be the school with the dual language program. How is that helping and guiding your process?
So in terms of why we were identified for targeted school improvement, the students who are of English language learners designation, they still receive that level of instruction in the dual language program. So they still go out for English instruction. So it doesn't really impact that in a way that would benefit other than we're fostering their native language. It's still early to say. And quite honestly, in terms of retention, and I'll be speaking to that point in a few moments, we haven't had a high number of students remain in the dual language program that are of English language learner designation or of the Hispanic subgroup because of transiency.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Mr. Ortiz, well, we can move into the dual language update.
Great. Okay, so if you recall back on May 26th, I provided an update to the school board with a recommendation in terms of how we should handle dual language program at McDonald Elementary School. And after that, we had the voice of the McDonald community was heard, and rightfully so. I applaud them for speaking up. And so this prompted this update and pivot of how we're going to go with the dual language program. So if we can scroll to the next page, Nate. Okay, yep. So the presentation goals for tonight is to provide an update to the program structure and also recommendations for long-term health of the program, which is quite honestly a concern for the parent group. So if you recall, we're going to go to the next slide. Back on May 26th, the recommendation was to keep the teachers in their respective grades, kindergarten and first, and continue to work on solidifying the Spanish literacy and math curriculum for kindergarten and first grade. And if you get a little bit down, if the program enrollment, thank you, that makes it a little bit easier to see, thanks. In terms of enrollment, we have 2 cohorts currently that completed first and kindergarten. And our first grade cohort going into second grade had an impact in terms of retention, mainly due to transiency in terms of students moving out of our district. We had 2 students that had program changes due to unique needs, but we were down to 34 students. The recommendation after conversations with the current first grade parents, conversations with our central administration, building level leadership, the teachers, will be to continue the program into second grade by shifting the kindergarten teacher to second and keeping the first grade teacher in first. We'll have the current cohorts continue to receive the Spanish program. So it'll move into first and second grade. The question was, what do we do with 34 students when we don't have enough students for 2 classrooms, but we have too much for 1? Well, between May 26th and today, we had 1 more student move out of the district. So we were down now to 33 students in cohort A. Our guidelines that we follow in terms of teacher to student ratio for second grade is 1 teacher for every 27 students. So we had to be creative. We were having discussions with parents, and ultimately the teachers and I looking at data, and as a team, parent, teacher, myself, looking at data to really decide what pathway for students moving into second grade would best serve them. And having conversations with a number of parents, we identified a number of, oh, if you go back to one more, there, stay there for a second. So the conversations, we relied on the data and parents and teacher feedback. And we had 6 parents identify their child as perhaps in the best interest for them long-term right now is to focus on their English language development. And candid conversations, and I would like to say, or I would like to believe, and I'm certain the parents who I spoke with would agree that the level of trust in our teacher and then the data and then the school, that we're making a decision in the best interest of their child and their situation. So focusing on the English language development for them was in their best interest, which pared it down to 27 students, which works for this school year for 1 teacher or 1 Spanish teacher, which would be in second grade, to work with 27 students. Now that 1 classroom will be a self-contained Spanish classroom where we can have the day be 50% Spanish, 50% English, or perhaps 60% Spanish, 40% English, depending on where we see the need. And the teacher and I, along with Mr. Van Buren and other leaders at McDonald, will work to really foster that classroom's development. So with that being said, we were able to make it work with first grade going to second. We have 1 classroom with 27 students. Of the 33 that were left, we as a team involving parents, teacher, and myself made a decision to focus on English instruction. Now we can go to the next slide. With the first current kindergarten going to first grade still remaining in the current setup of 50-50 split. Now, in terms of long-term recommendations, I provided a plan that would be cost neutral in terms of the budget. I know Mr. Greenwood was very happy about that. And, you know, I love to make him very happy, and everyone else in our district, quite frankly. However, the long-term recommendations for this program to really be viable and address the retention issues in terms of the first cohort and potentially the second cohort, we should consider opening up the enrollment to Willowdale and Davis families that are interested in the dual language program starting in kindergarten. And I believe that would be an easy thing to do, being that McDonald is the only school that offers this type of program, as long as the parents understand that perhaps there needs to be some level of commitment to staying at McDonald. And also from the board's perspective, a commitment to program development, yearly hiring a Spanish teacher, actively recruitment of an elementary Spanish teacher, because quite honestly, they're unicorns. They need to have a dual certification in terms of an elementary cert and a Spanish cert. And that's not a very common combination for the elementary setting. It's out there. We had to go find them. And so with that being said, the parents of the dual language program, yes, they want to help this program grow and continue for their children, but they see the value in this program and they want it to be viable long-term. And that was one of the messages that I heard loud and clear during our meetings between May 26th and today. And next slide, I believe that's the last slide. And yep. So if there are any questions, I see a couple of hands raised. I'll be more than happy to address any and all questions.
Okay, Andrew, you are up first.
Yeah, Mr. Ortiz, I'm wondering if you could maybe elaborate for us for a few minutes. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know that you're necessarily an expert on dual language programs, so forgive the question. But to the best of your knowledge, could you maybe outline for us for a few minutes? Imagine for a moment that cost was not an object in terms of a full implementation.
Mm-hmm.
What would we need to do to really do this right, as opposed to do it within, to sort of halfway do it within the budget constraints?
Yes. Okay. Great question. And I appreciate the opportunity to answer that question. If there were no budget constraints, what we would do is hire a Spanish teacher every single year for the next 4 years, so that we could have at least 6 Spanish teachers at McDonald, and 1 in every single grade, K-5, regardless of student population per cohort. Because right now a teacher we're allocated staff based off student enrollment. And we would have to dedicate hiring a Spanish teacher at McDonald regardless of student enrollment. That would be the first thing. Because if you really truly want to have this program be viable, right now I have it set up for it to be in 1st and 2nd grade. I won't have it in kindergarten. However, let's say we restart up again in kindergarten the following school year, I'll have K, 2, and 3. But it'll be a tough sell for those incoming kindergartens the following school year for them to say, what's the commitment for this long term, right? And that's a tough sell. That's why the first parent group a couple years ago, when we had those conversations, and I believe they would agree, they had a level of trust in the school district, in the school, and myself, that we would commit to this program long term over the course of 6 years. And they have poured blood, sweat, and tears into making this program as successful as it has been. So the commitment to the long-term planning of hiring is essential. Also, professional development for the teachers involved, because it is a unique program that requires a level of professional development outside of the scope of what we normally do. And third, what remediations are there going to be for students who are struggling? Because it's not simply providing some level of intervention in the English language. We want to look to provide intervention in the Spanish language as well as needed. And to do that, we need to have faculty and staff that could support that level of intervention, because they speak a language other than English, preferably obviously Spanish. And there are people out there who would be viable candidates to help support that level of intervention within the classroom. So staffing, and professional development without budgetary constraints would be the two biggest areas that I believe we need to focus on in terms of making this program viable.
Okay, Ms. Brancato, you're up.
Hi, Mr. Ortiz. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm tired, but then again, so I'm always tired. Anyway, so when we first started this program, didn't we commit to hiring a new Spanish teacher every year? I thought we did that.
That was the plan, yes.
Okay, so why can't we hire a third teacher and continue on our path and have K first and second this coming school year? Why can't we do that?
I don't have the answer for that.
Dr. Pavlicek, raised hand.
I can answer that question.
Okay.
That would require us to do is actually furlough one of our current teachers in order to stay at the same staffing levels that we currently have, be able to hire a Spanish teacher. The program's situation right now is more a function of where we are with the budget. And it wasn't anything that anybody anticipated, because certainly nobody anticipated the budget shortfall we're experiencing because of COVID.
So can't we move a teacher somewhere else?
No, it's all dependent upon their certification.
Okay, so when we started this program and it was presented to us, it was presented that we would add one Spanish teacher every year. So if we're going to do something, we need to do it right or not do it at all. So we've already started this. It has success. Personally, I see more Hispanic families and parents feeling involved, feeling embraced, and absolutely joining in, which is amazing. And I don't think we should stop. So I think we need to find the money to hire a third teacher for this Spanish program to continue on its path. I don't think we should stop what we've already started when we committed to it in the first place.
I do not disagree with you.
I know. Is there, I mean, we could squeeze. Can we squeeze? Mr. Greenwood, can we squeeze anywhere? I mean.
Okay, well, I don't see.
Mr. Miller has his hand up.
I hate to leave them hanging, which is what I feel like we're doing.
I mean, I definitely understand where you're coming from. If there was a way that we had the money, my perspective is, I agree with you, but just I know how tight the budget was and how hard they worked to get everything to where it was. So
Mr. Panofsky, I understand that, but as a parent, if I would have put my kids in that program, I would expect that it would continue. The siblings, parents did it thinking that they have additional children coming up through the ranks, that they would be able to join in. This was a family project. And as a parent, I say we need to continue what we started. And we said we would hire a new Spanish teacher every year, and we need to find a way to do that.
Okay. I know Mr. Miller's had his hand raised for a while. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Panofsky. Several things here. Number one, I don't want to lose sight of the important parts that were presented tonight and will continue. Bringing in 2 other schools, committing to a new grade level each year going forward. These are all important things. And what I don't want people to misunderstand is that when we create a pilot, it's a test. And there's no guarantee that that test is going to continue. But in this case, it will, but maybe not exactly the way it was presented. A lot of research went into this. We sent a teacher out to Oregon to study a program that was already in place and doing well and bring back recommendations. I think Mr. Ortiz did a great job, as I knew he would back in May when I said, let's wait for his presentation before we criticize it. So I guess the real question I'm asking of administration is, are we officially transitioning from a pilot to a program that we're going to maintain in the district? And, you know, where would we form a kindergarten class if we did have a teacher?
So Mr. Miller, you asked the question, where would we form the kindergarten class if we had a teacher? We would form it at McDonald. And I would ask that as a district, we open it up to all parents interested from Willowdale, from Davis and McDonald. We definitely have high interest at McDonald. It's a program that is mentioned, spoken about. It comes up in conversations in other areas of this county. And for that, I'm very proud and thankful for the teachers and the Office of Learning Innovation for their support in making it as successful as it is. We can definitely build upon its success. I'm not saying it's perfect, but if we commit to the program, it would be at McDonald. We'd make room for the classroom, obviously, and we would make it work.
Well, I'm very pleased with what you presented here. My question was to administration, and it's a two-parter. One is, are we officially transitioning out of pilot and into a program that we're going to maintain? And number two, if we had a kindergarten teacher, do we have a class for them?
Dr. Pollinchuk, you have your hand raised. Are you going to be able to answer that?
I can answer that. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, it's difficult for us to answer right now because of the current situation. I would very much support this program continuing beyond a pilot because I think there's a true benefit to the students having success in their native language and students acquiring also a second and even in some cases third language. There's a lot of research around how that just helps students academically overall, and would be very interested in seeing that even extend beyond elementary years into the middle and high school. In order to do that right now, we're in a tough situation because we needed to set our staffing levels by June 1st. So what we looked forward to each year is knowing that we would have elementary retirements. In this current year, going into in the 2021 school year, we did not replace some of those positions in order to stay within the same number of full-time employees that we have, knowing that we had the budget constraints. This would require us to take a look at possibly other funding sources, reappropriating some grant funds that, you know, are available, but that makes it very difficult because those grant funds are also assigned for the remote learning we might need to look towards, or some blended learning, compensatory educational services, and other safety supplies and equipment that we would need to ensure that we have so that all students can return back to school in some shape or form, and parents and staff are assured of the safety. So it's a difficult question to be asked and also to answer. You know, if I were continuing on in the school district, I would look for a way to make sure that this continued. This is going to be a question that if we modify it so that we just do grade 1 and 2 and look to build this into our long range plan to go back to continuing the program for the students as they rise through the grade levels and also then be inclusive of kindergarten, I would be very pleased to see that. This would just really require a carve out of the budget to make that dedication. And as a pilot as it is now, it doesn't have the board mandate. It would be something the board should consider as being part of its program offerings, just like English, math, science, and social studies, that it's on the books just assuredly.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No, go ahead.
I don't recall ever seeing a pilot that would run 5 or 6 years, which is basically what we're talking about with this plan here, which again, I think is a wonderful plan. And I understand the constraints that we're working under today. I think the results of the program were excellent and have proven. So I think we really should, even though we don't know where years 2, 3, 4, and 5 from here are. This is a current year that we're really under the crunch for. But with more time and the ability to explore some grants and programs, I feel more comfortable about the next 4 years of the program than this coming year. We also know that from time to time we have teachers that wait until a little later in the summer to retire. So we may still have those retirements. I guess I'm asking that we consider tonight making this an official program as presented. And 2, questioning again, if we were to somehow find a kindergarten teacher, do we have a class of students for them to teach?
I can answer that.
Go ahead, Mr. Ortiz.
I apologize for cutting you off, Mr. Dixon, but I could definitely answer that, Mr. Miller. In terms of would we have a classroom, since we
Not a classroom, class of students.
A class of students, I apologize. Yes, would we have a number of students, ideally 50, to start in kindergarten so that we could have 2 classrooms and then half and half, and one of them in homeroom, English homeroom and the Spanish homeroom. So yes, we were able to do that in the last years by simply relying on McDonald's student population. If we would open it up to Willowdale and Davis, I'm confident that we would be able to find 50 kindergarten students in the approximately 350 total kindergarten students that come yearly into our schools.
Dr. Ball, could you tell us how much it would cost to add a teacher, just so we have some idea what we're talking about here?
Sure. Odds are you could probably, as Mr. Ortiz said, these teachers are kind of hard to find. But if we can find the right teacher, we could probably do it all in for around $150,000 to $170,000 a year with, base salary and then all the, approximately 38% of additional cost of an FTE. So, one way you could do it is, I hate to do it, but, tap the fund balance and hope for better revenues. The economy is heating up. Things are looking up all over the place. Things aren't quite as bad as they used to be. So hopefully revenues will be up. Administration's hands are often tied when we get to this point. And Mr. Greenwood has been working diligently and paring to the bone, as have the rest of the administrators. And, obviously CEA made huge concessions to make next year happen. This really is a question of finding the money for one more teacher. And this is a great program. It's one of the best in the region. And,
that's why I'm so concerned about it. That's why I don't want to lose any momentum.
$70,000. And if the board makes the commitment and removes the pilot status, that's a full-on commitment. And then administration has to figure out how to do it. And in this case, the quick and easy answer is to tap fund balance a little bit to guarantee that position is there. But, I've already, we were looking for teachers last year. It's pretty much turnkey. Ms. Frederickson can post the job tomorrow if authorized.
That's why I had asked the question. It's a huge ask of you and Dr. Polinchuk, since regrettably we're counting down the days and you've only got 7 left. And to do what we're proposing here will take longer than 7 days. And certainly I want Mr. Greenwood to still be my friend. But when we get finished here, I am going to make a motion that we remove the pilot status and make this an official program, and hope for a second and a vote, and hope that we can put together the incremental funds we need in order to make this happen. A lot of things happen over the summer. PDE today releasing guidelines for certain temporary approval of certifications, and that may play a role in our being able to identify a teacher. There are some districts that may have qualified teachers that pay less money than we do and might be active, because part of this program says we would actively recruit teachers, and maybe we can try.
Okay, so we still have a number of hands raised. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ms. Crossan, you're next.
So I mean, when they had first stated that they weren't going to have the program, some of the parents were extremely upset, and I get it. We did tell them that we were going to, keep this going, this program, and it is a great program. So I really think that, the edge that it gives our kids, a dual language, it's like the rest of the world does. It's just a fantastic idea. I really think that we should, make it part of, not a program, not a pilot anymore. We really should, tonight make the effort to make sure it's funded properly.
Okay.
John?
Okay. Mr. Goddickson's up next.
Thank you so much. This is for Mr. Ortiz. I assume we had most of the kindergarten students already registered. So did they have the option of tapping into this second dual language program as a registered? And
So,
how
Mr.
many
Goddickson-
were registered at McDonald's?
Oh, I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off. So correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Polinchuk, I believe during our shutdown, kindergarten registration was put on hold for a little bit of time. So currently it's open again, kindergarten registration. I believe McDonald.
I can answer that question. It isn't on hold. We're just slow in getting the students registered. So we are taking registrations. It's just in terms of finalizing the paperwork until we can be in person. Those students are accounted for. It's just that they're not finalized until we can collect the necessary documents.
So I believe McDonald's up to 80 incoming kindergarten students. And I share that because we're typically pushing 100 by this time, but I believe that number will continue to increase as we resume some level of whatever normal is going to look like moving forward. And so what ends up happening, Mr. Goddickson and the rest of the board directors, we have family meetings throughout the summer at McDonald. I would host 3 to 4 meetings at various times of the day, some during the day, some in the afternoon, some in the evening. I think I even hosted one on a Saturday morning for parents' convenience so that they could truly make one of the meetings in terms of listening to the sales pitch, so to speak, for the dual language program. The first year, when there was some level of risk involved and committing to a program that was new and innovative, we were able to get 50 students. Last year, we did a lottery because we had more than 50 families interested. So we had to actually let some parents know, and this is just using McDonald's population of students. We had to let some parents know that they would not be able to be part of the program. And so, yeah, we handle that after July 1st. We have parent meetings over the course of the next 6 weeks. So parents can ask questions. I can do my presentation. I have parents from previous cohorts visit and support the program as well. And that's how we handle the recruitment piece for parents who are interested.
So it's more than reasonable to think that there could be a full group of 50 in the current kindergarten list.
Absolutely.
And out of the current kindergartners, are they all moving forward, all 50 of them, or are we losing any of that group?
I would say right now, I believe one moved out. So transiency still is something that is a concern, but I mean, I can't ask a parent when they're coming into kindergarten, do you plan on moving? So it's just a matter of, you know, that is what it is in that regard. So I would say the vast majority of them, I'd have to look at the numbers for going into first grade. But it's definitely at a higher number of students than we had from the previous cohort going into first grade.
So the people that really have connected, you know, with this program are really truly buying into it. So it's really only to you're leaving the district that we are losing students to the program.
Yep. Yep.
That to me really, you know, indicates that we should, you know, take it from pilot to, you know, included in our budget somehow.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Goddixon. Andrew, I know you were up next, but Mr. Greenwood has his hand raised. Do you mind?
I will certainly yield the floor to Mr. Greenwood.
Go ahead, Mr. Greenwood.
With all due respect, right, I appreciate greatly the impassioned discussion, but would certainly caution the board about making something permanent that we have not financially walked through. The budget process, you know, certainly was a difficult process this year, and decisions were made, and the tax increase we backed down on, and you know, to bring on a new teacher isn't, you know, is an effort. Unfortunately, in these presentations, right, the business office wasn't consulted, so I can't offer my best homework on the subject to adequately share with the board what it'll cost this year, as well as what it'll cost if this goes from a pilot to a full program, and would advise against making that sort of motion because it hasn't been, I don't believe, well thought out.
Okay, Mr. Dixon.
Well, I was going to say, make two comments. One, in general support, to say that in light of the motion that the resolution that we passed at the opening of this meeting, this seems to me, you know, to get towards, besides something that I think is in the genuine educational interest of all of our students, also speaks to equity. But I was also going to caution, pursuant to Mr. Greenwood's point, that, you know, we're riding here on the thought that this is something that shouldn't have happened. And I concede that point myself. I think that we should have structured things so that we were fully committing to this as we went through the budget negotiations amongst ourselves, and, you know, and in talking with folks. But having said that, I mean, this is why I would just, like, we have to caution ourselves here that if we do this today, which we can, and probably putting it off, I mean, and somebody else can speak to, can we table this for now and bring it up in another meeting in July, or will that not leave us enough time? I suspect that we are kind of under a gun if we want to do it. But we need to, as a board, then commit. We can't have anything for free. You know, if this is a program we want, we've got to be willing to pay for it.
Okay. Ms. Brancato, your hand's up again.
So can we make a motion to take this from a pilot to a program? Can we do that now? Mr. Miller, fill me in. Can we do that at this point?
Well, I still have my hand up. I was very careful to indicate in my initial suggestion, I don't want to alienate Mr. Greenwood, and I think it was unfair to cut him out of the process of planning this. My suggestion was that we make the motion as this particular plan was presented, which does not include the kindergarten class at present. It would be easier if Mr. Greenwood had a whole year to think about how to handle years 2, 3, 4, and 5 as we add a teacher each year. I also don't want to scare off any of the 7 superintendent candidates who are watching this meeting, but it's clear that the board wants this and the community wants this, and we know that things happen over the course of the summer. The new board members will find out that we may have to add another class at some grade level 3 days before school's open.
So Mr. Miller, my question is, can we make a motion and make this?
I'm getting there.
I know, but we need a short story.
Okay, we can make the motion, but we should be careful how we make the motion so that we don't cut administration entirely out of the process. Okay, in fact, if you'll entertain it, Mr. Panofsky, I'll make a motion, which is that we ask the administration over the next 30 days to consider the needs of making this a full-fledged program of the district beginning on September 1st and running until changed.
Okay, well,
So I'm not understanding what the motion is, Mr. Miller. Are you saying you want to make, are we voting on whether we take this from a pilot to a program, or are we voting on waiting 30 days to find out what the administration tells us?
Well, I don't believe in governing by ambush. So
Well, I don't either, but as a parent,
I'm answering your question.
But as a parent,
I am making a motion that we ask administration come back in 30 days and provide the board with some guidance as to what we can do in changing this from a pilot to a full-fledged program.
Well, the motion has been made and Ms. Eilenberg has her hand raised. Are you raising your hand to second the motion, Ms. Eilenberg, or do you have a comment?
I had a comment. I think it's important.
Mr. Dixon, we really should have a second if we're going to
I'll
entertain more
second.
discussion.
I will second the motion.
Okay, Mr. Dixon, seconded. Go ahead, Shelley.
I want to make sure that we have, when we're making motions and asking to vote on programs, I think we need to make sure they're on the agenda as such, and not do that on the fly in the moment. I support Mr. Miller in that. We need to make sure that everybody has ample time to look at the agenda item and make sure that it's well thought out and that we have all of the information. So I do agree.
That's a good thought, Mrs. Eilenberg, but we're not spending any money. We're asking administration for information and guidance.
Mr. Miller, I believe
that's not
agreeing with you.
That is not an inappropriate motion during a meeting.
I believe Ms. Eilenberg was actually agreeing with your motion, saying that it's okay to ask for us to look into it, but not ask us to approve it. Correct, Ms. Eilenberg?
Exactly.
Okay, so yeah, she was supporting you, Mr. Miller. Any other discussion on Mr. Miller's motion, which has been seconded? Ms. Brancato.
so 30 days from now would take us to the end of July. We don't have a meeting at the end of July, do we?
Well, it's anticipated that we'll have a special meeting for the purpose of appointing a superintendent, and we can add that to that meeting when it takes place.
Okay, so the end of July does not leave a lot of
30
time.
30 days from today would be July 23rd.
Okay, so that doesn't leave parents a lot of time to switch gears.
Right now, there's nothing to switch gears to.
Well, you're right, there's not, because
We haven't gotten a recommendation yet, but we have a presentation that's in front of us. We seem to like the presentation unanimously, and we're asking the administration over the course of the next 30 days to let us know what it would take. We may or may not at that time be able to approve it.
You can always squeeze money from somewhere, Mr. Miller.
Okay. Ms. Eilenberg, your hand is still raised. Do you have anything else?
Sorry, removing that.
Go ahead, Mr. Dixon.
I'm just going to echo what Mr. Miller said. I think that, and I wanted to actually ask Mr. Ortiz, ultimately, assuming 30 days hence, that the board, because it does seem like there's broad support for the notion, it's a question of can we pay for it? It's really just comes down to can we afford it? Mr. Ortiz, assuming that on July 23rd, the board is able to, have a plan in front of it that says, all right, we can do this. Does that give you, in fact, enough time to properly implement it?
It would be tough, but I've never met a challenge I wouldn't accept.
So with that, I'm confident in Mr. Ortiz's ability in this regard.
Okay, well, any other comments, Mr. Dixon?
No, that'd be.
Okay, Mr. Goddickson.
I do have a, your comment here because, Mr. Greenwood, I think, is as important a component in this as well because he needs to go and find the money.
Right, and that's why we're asking for 30 days for the administration to look into it. So we're not actually approving anything tonight. We're approving 30 days for administration to look into approving it. Okay, I see no more comments. Mr. Robald, can I have a roll call vote on the motion?
Yes. Mr. Martin,
No.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Panofsky,
Yes.
Mr. Burgnick,
Yes.
Mrs. Brancato, Mrs. Crossan.
So is this to, what, I'm not following.
We're
what the-
voting, I'll explain, maybe it would make it easier. We're voting on the motion that Mr. Miller made to, let me see if I can get that.
It's to direct the administration
For,
to investigate
over
whether
the
or
next
not
30 days to consider the needs of making this a full-fledged program beginning on September 1st and running until changed. The board would have 30 days, the administration would have 30 days to come up with a plan about whether this would work,
So they're
whether this
gonna
would be feasible.
look for funding.
No, the recommendation would come from administration in the next 30 days about how this would look.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Mrs. Eilenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Goddickson,
Yes.
Mrs. Brancato,
Yes.
Mr. Dixon.
Yes.
Okay, 8-1.
Okay, we still have another presentation. Mrs. Coles and Mr. Ortiz with the Head Start update.
All right. It's my lucky night.
Sure is.
So I know Mrs.
You
Coles
hear
is
me?
there.
Good morning.
Yep,
I think I'm here. Oh, good evening. Can I start, Ernie, and then you take it from here?
please do. Yep.
Okay. So in the fall, Dr. Ball, Mr. Greenwood, Mr. Wharton-B, and myself met with Dr. Locke from the BCIU on opening 2 Head Start classrooms at McDonald Elementary School. The board, and we gratefully thank the school board of directors for signing the MOU. I'm happy to report that in the fall, we will have 2 classrooms opening at McDonald Elementary School at no cost to the district. I think you all know, even from the conversation with the dual language program, the earlier we get the students, we get them for life. And we're really excited, having been a kindergarten teacher and overseeing Head Start for many years in my life. I know that the importance of having a Head Start programs, the kids are already used to routines. They're used to being in the school building. Teachers become a part of the fixture. So right now we'll have those 2 classrooms housed at McDonald Elementary School. They will be there from 9 to 3. Each classroom will have approximately 19 students. Head Start is really self-sufficient. Priority will be given to the students who attend kindergarten who will attend kindergarten at McDonald. And then our future others from the other two schools will be also able to enroll. There is no cost, as I said, to our eligible families. Each classroom is served by a Head Start teacher, a Head Start paraeducator, preschool early interventionist. And those teachers will support the program. They'll have a nutritional specialist, family engagement specialist. So we're really excited to welcome these two new classrooms to McDonald Elementary School. We have been advertising it. The flyers have gone out via e-alert, as well as it is going out in our bags as we were doing our summer meal distributions. We thank you for your support, and now I'll let Mr. Ortiz jump in and add anything he wants. Our presentation was very short.
All right, so I have been in contact with Deb from the BCIU, who's heading the charge and launching this program at McDonald, and with the logistics in terms of what it's going to look like at McDonald. I know Mrs. Cole's address that'll be from 9 to 3. It'll serve students who are projected to attend McDonald, and then open up to other slots of other students in Centennial. But in terms of at the building logistics, we have dedicated 2 classrooms. We've identified 2 classrooms where the students would be housed. They will be next to each other to maximize the staff members from the BCIU's proximity, so that they can truly have an efficient day. It'll be housed in the kindergarten hallway, which makes a lot of sense since they will be somewhat close in age, and they're right outside next to the more primary playground. We are working with building level leadership to really make the logistics of a schedule in terms of going out for recess, lunch, things like that, arrival, dismissal. There's some logistics that we need to work out with that, but we're doing it. I'm personally really excited for this because, as Mrs. Coles mentioned, this has the potential to truly impact getting our boys and girls, for a lack of a way of better saying, a head start in their education. Plus, they're going to be McDonald Bulldogs anyway, so you might as well come to McDonald and have a great time with us there. It's a win-win.
Does anyone have any questions? As Mr. Ortiz alluded to, we are still working out a lot of logistics with the BCIU. We do know that, I know that the FCS students from Tenet, they've typically done some of their classes with the Head Start program, so it'll be even nicer to have them in a school building coming down the street to McDonald to work with those students. So this is again a win-win. I'm really excited. I know Mr. Ortiz, and I really thank him and Mr. Van Buren. I know Mr. Van Buren said he's been wanting this to happen for a long time. So we are finally getting Head Start in Centennial, and we hope that it will continue to grow.
Mr. Goddixson, go ahead.
So there's basically 2 questions that I have. Is there a requirement for them to be Centennial students, or could they be from any neighboring district as well? And secondly, they are not necessarily required to be special needs students because they operate in an IU program.
Correct. So there are Head Start programs run through the BCIU at different locations. So we are capturing the Centennial students that were in other locations right now. And they do not have, these are not like Davis has our students who have the early or part of the early intervention program. This is not that program. This is just our, students who are just ready, that will probably would have gone to a daycare setting. And now they're going to come to our buildings for Head Start and they'll be receiving actually some of the curriculum materials that we use in kindergarten. Like I said, I haven't been a kindergarten teacher who had a Head Start in her building. We followed a lot of collaboration, a lot of conversation. It just makes for ease a smooth transition from pre-K to kindergarten, because the kids are already familiar with the building. They know the building. They know, like Ms. Ortiz said, they know where the cafeteria, the gym, the recess yard. So when it's time for them to go to kindergarten, they're already familiar with the building. They already know some of the teachers. So some of that apprehension that kids who come in who have not been a part of a preschool setting they don't have it. Plus, we are in Head Start, you're working with a lot of those academic pieces, curricular wise, to support them. And like Ernie said, give them truly a head start. So we're excited, and hopefully, does that answer your question, Mr. Goddixon?
Yes, it does to a certain degree. Again, they are Centennial students, all of them, but could be homeschooled, or home base would be either Willowdale or Davis.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, so we're open at first. They'll take the students whose addresses are in the catchment area of McDonald, and then extend it to Willowdale and Davis students. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Greenwood.
That is the correct. They draw from the McDonald catchment, then the Centennial catchment, and if they don't fill it, which they expect to, they would then have students from out of our district. That is how the program runs.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, then we will move on to the consent agenda portion. There's nothing for information. Does anyone want to pull anything from 4.2? Hearing none. Be it resolved that the Centennial School District Board of School Directors approves the Special Education Services Agreement and schedule of projected costs with the Bucks County Intermediate Unit Number 22 for the 2020-2021 school year. District costs not to exceed $3,996,397. Approves the contract with Meraki for the 2020-2021 school year. Approves the standard contract for services with Lakeside Educational Network for student placements and mobile support for special education students. Approves the agreement to participate in the Pennsylvania School-Based Access Program for the 2020-2021 school year. Approves the exception to Policy 206, assignment within the district to allow students 1-22, 11-22, and 16-22 to attend Willowdale and Log College Middle School in the 2020-2021 school year. Transportation will be provided by the parents. Approves the 2-year agreement and purchase of the digital assessment library with Pearson for psychological testing materials. District cost not to exceed $30,870. Approves a quote from Vista Higher Learning for the purchase of licenses for the AP Spanish class. District not to exceed $5,934.39. Approves the quote from Wilson Language Training Corporation for foundations for elementary students. District cost not to exceed $30,628.39. Approves the PIAA Health and Safety Plan. Approves the submission of the William Tennant High School ATSI Plan. Approves the submission of the Klinger Middle School A-TSI Plan. Approves the submission of the McDonald Elementary School A-TSI Plan. Do I have a second?
Second.
That was Mr. Dixon, correct?
Yes.
Any discussion on any of these? Okay, Ms. Robold, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Panofsky,
Yes.
Mr. Burdnick,
Yes.
Mrs. Brancato,
Yes.
Mrs. Crossan,
Yes.
Mrs. Eilenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Goddixon,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Dixon,
Aye.
900.
Thank you, Mr. Panofsky, and no offense to Mr. Burdnick or Mr. Miller, but I'm sure we all hope and pray that your terms are a little bit shorter. Mr. Burdnick, you're up.
Certainly, we begin with, good evening, directors and Centennial community. We begin with item 5.1, information items. There are 3. 5.1A is the monthly reports from our primary depository, the Pennsylvania School District Liquid Asset Fund. 5.1B is the handout from a Pennsylvania Association of School Business Officials state budget update. 5.1C is the Pennsylvania Association of School Business Officials update on the current economic climate on financial markets follow-up. Both of those reports are from June. Are there any questions on the information items? If not, 5.2A through L, for the most part, are annual repetitive bid items and other annual items necessary for the business office to conduct business over the course of the summer. Would anyone like to pull anything? If not, I will proceed. 5.2A, awards furniture quote Q20010 to Hertz Furniture, School Specialty, Tanner Furniture, and WB Mason in the aggregate amount of $11,234.80. 5.2B, awards art supply bid 20210 to Blick Art Material, Cascade School Supply, Ceramic Shop, Hertz Brothers, Lakeshore Learning Materials, WB Mason, Medco, NASCO, National Art, S&S Worldwide, Sheffield Pottery, in the aggregate amount of $57,912.09. 5.2C, awards athletic equipment and supplies bid 2020-08 to Ampro, BSN Sports, Colorado Time Systems, Flag House, Gopher Sport, Longstreth, MFAC, NASCO, Pyramid School Products, Riddle, S&S Worldwide, and School Specialty in the aggregate amount of $30,441.53. 5.2D, awards stock supply bid 2020-09 to Cascade School Supply, Kurtz Brothers, WB Mason, National Art, Pyramid School Products, Scott Electric, and Standard Stationery in the aggregate amount of $38,504.04. 5.2E, authorizes participation and accepts the current and subsequent bids and awards of the following joint purchasing programs for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. Association of Educational Purchasing Agencies, PCIU Cooperative Purchasing Group, Byboard Cooperative Purchasing, CoStars, Keystone Purchasing Network, Municipit, National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance, Omnia Partners, Sourcewell, PA DGS State Contracts, PEPM, Southeastern Pennsylvania Natural Gas Consortium, Southeastern Pennsylvania Buying Group, the Cooperative Purchasing Network, and U.S. General Services Administration Cooperative Purchasing Program. And 5.2F, rejects cap and gown bid 2020-13. 5.2G, approves the list of memberships for the 2020-21 school year. 5.2H, approves the contract with Kelly Services, Inc. to provide substitute services for teaching and support staff effective July 1st, 2020. 5.2I, adopts the 2020-2021 Food Service Fund 50 budget in the amount of $3,361,900. 5.2J, adopts the Capital Reserve Fund 32, Capital Projects 39, and Debt Service 40 fund budgets in the following amounts respectively: $1,746,107, $2,373,000, and $500. 5.2K, approves the 2020-21 property and casualty insurance plan, including package, business, auto, commercial umbrella, errors and emissions, international package, boiler and machinery, student accident, cyber liability, and pollution liability through the district's broker of record, Willis Towers Watson, at a cost not to exceed $367,924. And finally, last but not least, 5.2L, adopts the 2020-21 payroll calendar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Miller, I believe, already did.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, second.
May we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Birdnick,
Aye.
Mrs. Brancato,
Yes.
Mrs. Crossan,
Yes.
Mrs. Eilenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Goddixson,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Panofsky,
Yes.
Mr. Dixon,
Yes.
900.
All right, Mr. Miller, Operations Committee, bring us home.
Okay, Mr. Wardenby, it's your big moment. Tell us about the savings or the additional income that we're going to receive from the demand response program.
Absolutely. A couple years ago, we entered into the demand response program in effort to save energy costs, as well as to make a little bit of money from reducing our power during summer. We're going to actually have our first day on Thursday to start reducing power for the new term. So over the last 2 years, we were able to earn about $49,000 just by turning off critical functions, putting the buildings in non-occupied mode, and letting my guys know, hey, if the area is not being used, just turn off the lights, turn off the power to those areas. So I'm glad to say that we got our last check about a week and a half ago, and we're well over $49,000 in earnings. But you also have to look at it from a perspective of not paying PICO as well. So the earnings are actually more. You got the $49,000, and then you also have the savings for that day or for that term from PICO.
Very good. And how much were we supposed to receive?
About 40, 45. So we did a little better.
We are above what our expectation was.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, let's continue on with the annual lead and drinking water update.
As the board may recall, last year I did a presentation this very time about our efforts to analyze our water as mandated by the state. It was brought down by a couple state senators and made incumbent upon every school district to report back on lead in drinking water. We did about 435 samples, of which is an initial flush, turn on the faucet, collect that sample, and then the second sample being 30 seconds later. We had a number of samples that came back positive for lead, and then we also took a look at the flush sample thereafter. So it went from like 20 samples that were suspect down to 4 that really needed to be analyzed. So we analyzed it, basically changed the faucets. Believe it or not, albeit we have newer schools, we do have some hardware or some faucets and fixtures that are not what you considered certified lead-free, and you will produce a positive when testing for those. In addition, the little filter that you have on the bottom, the aerator on the bottom, you got to clean that out once in a while. So we did that as well. So I'm proud to say that out of those 435 samples, we are proverbially lead-free. And I use the word proverbially because you also have to consider outside forces, meaning the source of the water coming into the building. But as of this juncture, we're confident that we tested enough in our buildings to assure that we're lead-free. And moving forward, if a fixture were to break, we're making sure that the fixture that we replace on the box says lead-free on it.
Very good. That concludes does anybody have any questions for Mr. Woodard? Then that concludes the presentation portion of our meeting. Is there anyone who would like to pull one of the 5 resolutions we have coming up? Hearing none. Be it resolved that the Centennial School District Board of School Directors approves 6.2A, a renewal for a system protection plan for the projection system and planetarium for the 2021 school year, district cost not to exceed $6,447. 6.2B, approves a 3-year agreement to renew Securely Web filter from, it does say Securely, I think. Is it Securely the name of the provider?
Yes, Mr. Miller, it is.
Okay. From July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2023, district cost not to exceed $6,805 per year. Awards the device card bid 2020-11 to Visual Sound for the purchase of 100 Luxor LLTM30-B computer cards for the elementary classrooms. District cost not to exceed $36,011. 6.2D, approves the assistance to legal counsel by Barry Izett and Associates in reference to the existing haunch matter at the William Tennant High School. District cost not to exceed $10,700. And 6.2E, approves a revision to the resolution the board approved June 9th, 2020, authorizing administration to enter into a purchase order under EZI QC program of the Keystone Purchasing Network with S.J. Thomas Company Incorporated for construction services as related to the repairs and improvements to the existing precast concrete haunches located at William Tennant High School. Revised district cost not to exceed $1,365,735.64.
Can I ask a question?
May we have
I'll second it. And then I would like
who seconded?
Mr. Dixon?
I did. And a question about 6.2E. The new amount reflects the savings, correct? Over what we had projected?
I believe the new amount reflects the $10,700 added for the legal assistance by Barry Izett and Associates.
No, I'd like to make a correction. That's the six. This is Mr. Whartonby. That's 6.2D, Mr. Miller. 6.2E does reflect a savings. Just a real quick snapshot. We found an error in the multiplier that they used, and we corrected that error, which resulted in about a $72,000 savings.
There we are. All right, that was it.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, Mrs. Robold, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Brancato,
Yes.
Mrs. Crossan,
Yes.
Mrs. Eilenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Goddixson,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Panofsky,
Yes.
Mr. Bergnick,
Yes.
Mr. Dixon,
Yes.
900.
And that concludes the operations portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Before we adjourn, tonight is the last meeting that we will have with Dr. Baugh, our current superintendent, and Dr. Polinchuk, our current assistant superintendent. I know we've thanked them for their service in the past, but I thought we ought to recognize them one more time before they make their several exits. Thank you for everything you've done for the district. And we appreciate all the effort and work and time you've put in here.
And Dr. Baugh has his hand raised.
Oh, yes, sorry. Dr. Baugh, please.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. That was very nice of you to say that. I just want to thank the board and in particular the Centennial community for 5 terrific years. We have done some of the most amazing work imaginable in such a short time. We have worked to empower our teachers. They were obviously very concerned about leadership change, so we've worked very hard to develop the capabilities of our teaching staff, and you're seeing the fruits of those labors starting to, come forward on the vines. I'll be brief. I have greatly appreciated the opportunity to serve the children and teachers in the community, and it has been, the pinnacle of my career. And so I really want to thank the Centennial community for the opportunity to be of service. I think you're headed in the right direction. I think we, meaning you, are really moving forward. And so that's exciting to see. And while I'm deeply saddened not to be a part of it, I will be following from afar and keeping my fingers crossed. The support for the dual language program is huge. The support for pre-K is vital. And we are making a difference in thousands of children's lives. And, to the cabinet and to the administrators on this call, it's been a real pleasure to serve with you. You've been there through thick and thin. You've hung in there. You haven't quit. You've rolled up the sleeves and gotten the job done when other people couldn't. So I really thank the current cabinet. You're fantastic. And to the board, good luck. This is a tough time to hire a superintendent, and I wish you well in that search. I truly, truly do. My hope for you is that you will find someone that far exceeds what, I was able to bring to the table. So again, I don't want to belabor the point, but thank you for the opportunity to serve. Thank you for the opportunity to advance public education in Centennial. It's been a real treat and honor. And Mr. Dixon, thank you for the kind words. I do appreciate it. And, best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Baugh. Mrs. Brancato, I see you have your hand raised, but I would like to, Jennifer also has her, Dr. Polinchuk, has her hand raised. So if you don't mind, I'll let Dr. Polinchuk.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Dixon. I just want to say that I was very honored to be a part of the Centennial School District for the second time. A lot has not ended up much like I know I would have expected, although some people might have expected or hoped for different things to occur. And, you know, one thing that I can say to the Centennial community is that we have an incredible team of principals: Anthony Gabriel, Melissa Bolden, Tom Greenwood, Robert Whartonby, Virginia Fredrickson. All of these folks are poised and ready to carry us through what we're looking forward to in these next couple of months as we prepare to open up schools. I'm sorry that I will not be a part of that team, as I will need to be working on opening up another school district. But, you know, everything that I learned helped to prepare me for where I am back when, you know, I was 6, 10, 17 years old, and also now as an adult. And I wish you well and Godspeed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Polonchuk. Mrs. Brancato.
So I really just wanted to thank Dr. Polonchuk and Dr. Baugh. I don't know about anybody else, but I am really sad about it because I think they're two people that I didn't always agree with. But they have a lot of class. And they set a really good example and set the bar really high for our entire cabinet. We have a great cabinet, and we didn't get a great cabinet by ourselves. These people found them for us, and we have the best. So I wish them all the luck in the world where they're going. And I wish you didn't have to go, but I know you are. I want you to know that the community really cared about both of you, and wherever you're going, those people are really lucky. I hope we are that lucky when we pick our new superintendent. So I thank you for your years of service, for your kindness, and for teaching even me a few things. Thank you.
Mr. Godix.
Thank you so much. Again, Mr. Dr. Polonchuk and Dr. Bao, you know, I have enjoyed working with you guys. It is going to be a great loss to Centennial that we are seeing both of you going simultaneously. Lewisburg is going to be very happy. They're going to be very content, and they're going to be very pleased to get a new superintendent of Dr. Polonchuk's caliber. I think he has all the potential to become the new Dr. Ball up there, the superintendent of the year in Pennsylvania. Now, Dr. Ball, I've been on the board half the time that you've been, superintendent, and I've just seen our district climb, get better, move forward, and Dr. Ball, yourself have moved forward. You became the superintendent of the year in Pennsylvania. It is, being at the top of the mountain in Pennsylvania. I know you're going to Aspen. It's a little bit higher up there, so probably a bigger mountain to climb. So I do wish both of you the best of luck. We will miss both of you. Good luck.
Mr. Panofsky, you'd had a hand raised. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to add my my note of thanks to both Dr. Baugh and Dr. Polonchuk. As a new board member, I know definitely, especially Dr. Polonchuk, you're always very willing to answer all my questions, no matter how stupid I felt asking them, because as I was trying to learn. So thank you, and just best of luck to both of you.
All right. Well, I think on that note, we can adjourn for this evening. Thank you both again, Dr. Polonchuk and Dr. Baugh, and really best of luck to you in your future endeavors. May I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, wait, before I do, I'm sorry, one last thing. I must make the following announcement. The next meeting of the Committee of the Whole will be held Tuesday, August the 18th of 2020. Now, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I think Mr. Panofsky moved and Mr. Burdenich seconded. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Right.
Good night, everybody.